Hey everyone, welcome. So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, you have definitely asked yourself that one huge question. Is my business idea actually any good? Well, today we are going to dive deep into how you can find a real answer to that, before you bet the entire farm on it. So let's just start with a bit of a reality check. I want you to think about this. For every 50 business ideas out there, it's estimated that only one, just one, is actually commercially viable. That's a 98% failure rate before you even start. The stakes are just incredibly high. And that road to success, it's literally paved with brilliant ideas that, for whatever reason, just weren't great businesses. The big question then is, how in the world do you figure out if your idea has what it takes to be that 1 in 50? How do you avoid wasting your precious time, your energy, and your money on an idea that's basically destined to fail? Well, guess what? There's a process for that, and it's exactly what we're going to break down right here. Okay, so meet your new best friend, the feasibility analysis. Seriously, think of it like a pre-flight check for your business. It's a way to really kick the tires on your idea, and to do it early in the game, long before you write a massive business plan or, and this is the important part, spend a single dime. So here's our game plan. We'll quickly cover what this analysis really is, and then we're going to run your idea through what I like to call the idea gauntlet. 4 super important tests that cover your product, the market, your team, and, of course, the money. And then at the end, we'll talk about how to make that big go or no-go decision. Okay, so let's get into it. What is a feasibility analysis? Look, it's not about crushing your dreams. Not at all. It's about putting them through a proper stress test so you can find the dream that's actually worth chasing with everything you've got. This is the step that separates a good idea from a truly viable business. At its heart, it's really an investigative tool. You're basically playing detective. You're looking at the idea's own merit, and you're making absolutely sure there's a real market for it. And the intel you gather here, it not only protects you from a bad investment, it also becomes the solid foundation for a much, much stronger business plan later on. All right, let's step into the gauntlet. Test number 1 is all about your product or service itself. This is where we have to get brutally honest and ask maybe the most fundamental question of all. Beyond you and your mom, does anyone out there actually want this? This first test forces you to answer some really simple but incredibly powerful questions. Does the idea actually make sense when you say it out loud? Is it solving a real nagging problem for someone, or is it just kind of a nice to have? And this is a big one. Are there any show-stopping fatal flaws in the basic concept that you might be overlooking because you're just so excited? So how do you get these answers? Well, one of the best tools you can use is something called a concept statement. And it's super simple. It's just a 1-page document that describes what your business is, who it's for, and what makes it special. Then you take that and you share it with people, potential customers, industry experts, to get their raw, unfiltered feedback. And you can see how simple this can be, right? This little excerpt immediately tells you the product, who it's for, and why it's different. It makes an idea that's just floating around in your head feel real, which allows people to give you that honest feedback that can help you strengthen or maybe even completely change your concept for the better. And to really, truly test demand, you've got to do what we call gumshoe research. Yeah, think like a detective. Get out of your office, get out into the real world. Go scrounge for clues. If you have an idea for, I don't know, educational toys, go volunteer at a daycare center. Observe people. Talk to them. This kind of hands-on research is absolutely priceless. Okay, so let's say your product idea passed the first test. People actually want it. That's fantastic. But can it survive out there in the wild? That brings us to our second test in the gauntlet, analyzing the industry and your specific target market. Now, it is so important to understand this distinction. The industry is the big picture. Think the entire restaurant industry. But your target market is the specific little slice of that pie that you're aiming for, like, say, vegan lunch spots for office workers in a specific neighborhood. See, you're not competing with everyone. You're competing for a very specific customer. So the goal is to find that Goldilocks zone. Your target market has to be large enough to actually support a business and make a profit, but you also want it to be niche enough that you don't immediately pop up on the radar of the huge industry giants on day one. It's that sweet spot where you can really plant your flag and start building a loyal following. An idea is only as good as the people who bring it to life. So test number 3 moves from the what to the who. This is all about organizational feasibility. It's time to take a really hard look in the mirror and ask, does our team have what it actually takes? Two things are just non-negotiable here. First, does your founding team have a genuine, unstoppable passion for this idea? Because you're going to need it. And second, how well do you really understand the market you're about to jump into? Passion is the fuel, for sure, but that deep expertise, well, that's the engine. You absolutely need both to get anywhere. And success takes more than just a great team, right? It needs a whole ecosystem of resources. Think about it. Do you have access to the right kind of physical space? Is there a good labor pool nearby you can hire from? What about your network of suppliers or potential partners? These are the practical, often overlooked little pieces of the puzzle that can totally make or break a new business. All right, let's move on to the final and, let's be honest, often the most intimidating test, financial feasibility. This is where the rubber really meets the road. Now, we're not building a full-blown financial model just yet, but we do need a quick preliminary check to see if the numbers can even work. We can break this down into 3 pretty manageable steps. First, get a ballpark estimate of the total cash you'll need just to get the doors open. Second, do some of that gumshoe detective work again and see how similar businesses are actually doing. And third, use that information to make a solid judgment call on the overall financial attractiveness of your idea. So what does a financially attractive business even look like on paper? Well, you're looking for these green flags. Things like the potential for really rapid sales growth in those first few years, a high percentage of recurring revenue, that's the holy grail for investors, by the way, because it means predictable income, and super important, the ability to eventually fund your own growth without constantly needing outside cash. If your idea checks a few of these boxes, you're probably on the right track. So, you've run your idea through the gauntlet. It's been tested against the product, the market, the team, and the money. Now what? Well, now it's time to interpret the results and make that big decision. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that this is not a pass-fail exam. It's a clarifying filter. The results don't give you a grade, they give you a direction. They empower you to make a really informed choice. And hey, maybe that choice is to proceed full steam ahead. Or maybe it's to refine the idea, or pivot, or even just shelve it and move on. Realizing an idea won't work before you've spent your life savings on it, that, my friends, is a massive win. And that really brings us to the end. You now have the framework to separate a fleeting thought from a genuine business opportunity. So the only real question left to ask is this: is your idea ready to run the gauntlet?